everyone. Welcome back to the Operations on the Real Numbers course. I'm Mrs. Cofield, and today is lesson number 8, Subtraction. Now, I tell you, today is the day that I've been telling you about. We have arrived. This is a big day. This is the day where you're going to discover just what I said about subtraction. And if anybody can remember what I mentioned, I told you guys that subtraction is really addition of the opposite. Now, what that means in English is that when you subtract a number, you just add its opposite. Now, if there's anybody out there that can remember, what is the phrase I use to describe an opposite? Yes, 2 words, additive inverse. So, for example, we said the opposite of 5 is negative 5. The opposite of 1 million is negative 1 million, okay? So this is what we mean by the opposite of the number. So let's go ahead and give it a try. And we're going to do some subtraction by adding the opposite. So if we have 5 take away 7, let's think about what we're really saying here. We're taking away 7, so therefore that's addition of the opposite. So the question is, what's the opposite of 7? Well, the opposite of 7 is negative 7. So in reality, this is 5 plus negative 7. Now it's addition. And you know how to add. Just think about it. There's a battle going on between the N's and the P's. The big N's, but the big P's. Nah, how about the little N's and the big P's, okay? So if they're fighting and they're trying to take each other out, it's like boom, boom, boom. Oh! How many do we have left? Who's left standing? Because they take one another out, right? So we end up with only the lonesome negative 2. Because in the first place, if you looked at it, you can see we have more negatives anyway. So they won. Let's try another one. Now we have negative 2 take away 3, okay? But let's reverse that and see how you write that as addition of the opposite, all right? So it's basically saying that we're adding, if we were taking away 3, what's the opposite of 3? It's negative 3. So what this means, if there was a battle going on, you got a bunch of N's over here, just 2 actually. Then you got some N's over here, and that's 3 of them. Wait a second. They're not against each other. They're all on the same team. They're N's. N's plus N's give you more N's. So a negative 2 plus a negative 3 is a negative 5. How about that? So let's go on to another one just like this. But in this case, this is a special case. And it's one of our favorites. So in this case, we say 2 take away negative 8. Now remember we said addition of the opposite. But notice how you have the takeaway and the negative right next to each other like that. Now, Dr. Khan of Wayne State showed me this special technique that he does whenever he says take away negative. And this is what it looks like. So take out your pencil and all you got to do is 2 moves. Just like that. And when you do that, you got to make the sound effect. You turn those into addition of the opposite. So what that's really saying is 2 plus 8, okay? And now we're back to regular addition. 2 plus 8, that's 10. How about it? So, we have been talking all week about this main principle of addition. And I know everybody out there knows that the only things that you can ever add are the same things. And when you add the same things, you get the same things, right? But did you guys know that this main principle extends to subtraction? So if this is the case for the main principle of addition, I wonder if anyone out there can figure out what do they think that the main principle of subtraction might sound like? Well, maybe you guessed it. It sounds a lot like this main principle here. All it says is the only things you can ever subtract are the same things. And when you subtract the same things, you get the same things. In essence, don't it kind of sound like the same thing? You're right. But let's see if we can apply this principle, this main principle of subtraction. So, In this case, we're going to subtract if possible, and if it's not possible, just write NP. That means not possible. So we have 5 dogs, take away 2 dogs. So what are our things? Dogs, take away dogs. You end up with dogs. How many dogs? 3. So 5 take away 2 is 3, and it's 3 dogs. How about 5 dogs take away 2 chairs? Dogs, chairs? Nah, not possible. Those two don't mix. You can't add dogs with chairs, and similarly, you can't take away chairs from dogs. How do you do that? It just doesn't add up. So, what about in a case like this? If we said 5 sevenths take away 2 sevenths, are these the same things? We have sevenths taking away sevenths. Absolutely. They're the same thing. So let's just subtract. If 5 take away 2, that's 3. So altogether, that's 3 sevenths. Okay? How about 3/4 take away 1/3? Fourths or in thirds? No, not possible. We can't take fourths and take away thirds. But I know somebody out there is like, wait a second, didn't we talk about this? Didn't we find out a way to make it work? You're right. You're on to something. Here's what you need to remember. Last time we talked about it in terms of addition, but let's see how you can work with fractions when it comes to subtraction. To subtract fractions, just like adding fractions, get a common denominator, also known as a CD. So again, if we're subtracting the fractions, all you have to do, just like when we're adding, just get a common denominator. So let's take that same problem and now let's figure out how to convert it into the same things so that we might be able to subtract. So we have 3/4 take away 1/3. Now remember, in order to get a common denominator, you must multiply the two denominators together. So we can multiply 4 times 3, and therefore we know our denominator is now going to be 12ths, okay? So now let's take these two fractions and convert them into 12ths quickly. 3/4 times 3/3 gives us 9/12, and 1/3 times 4/4 gives us 4/12. We've converted them into the same things. Now we can carry on. So from here, we can say that 9/12 take away 4/12 gives us how many 12s? Remember, this is just regular old 9 take away 4. You don't even have to rewrite it as addition of the opposite because everybody knows what 9 take away 4 is. That's just 5. So our final answer is 5/12 because it's the same things. 12ths take away 12ths gives us more 12ths. Let's see if we can try something different. The next thing we talked about last time was mixed numbers, but you're going to find that a lot of these rules are very, very similar. So in this case, to subtract mixed numbers, all you have to do is convert them into fractions. Remember, this is the main way that we would like to tackle mixed numbers. When you see a mixed number, just convert it to a fraction, okay? And it'll make your life easier. So, if we were to subtract 5 1/3, take away 1 1/2. Let's go ahead, just like I said, first thing you should do, put on your converting cap. So let's go. 5 1/3 becomes 16/3, and then 1 1/2 becomes 3/2. So now we have two different fractions. But the question is, are they the same things? Thirds and halves? No, they're not. So now let's think again. We have to convert by finding a common denominator, okay? So let's convert 3 times 2, and that gives us 6. So we're going to convert these fractions into sixths, okay? So this is what it looks like. Let's get our common denominator by multiplying those fractions. Here we go. 16/3 times 2/2 gives us 32/6. And then 3/2 times 3/3 gives us 9/6. And now since we have the same things, we can subtract the same things. Because guess what? The only things you can subtract are the same things. When you subtract the same things, you get the same things. So let's see what that looks like. 32/6 take away 9/6. What does that give us? That gives us, of course it gives us 6 because these are the same denominators, right? The same things. And now when you subtract in the numerator, you find out that 32 take away 9 is 23. So our final answer is 23/6. Beautiful. So as we move forward, the last thing we talked about before was subtracting decimals. Now let's see if anybody can remind us, how in the world do we add decimals, okay? We were talking about adding decimals before, but if you look at it just like adding, all you have to do is line up the decimal places. Because remember, you can only add tenths plus tenths, hundredths plus hundredths, so on and so forth, right? So it's the same thing when we subtract. They must be lined up by the decimal places. So here's our example. We're going to go with 12 and 71 hundredths, take away 3 and 4 tenths. Now if we line up those decimals, this is what it looks like. Line it up just right underneath it, and then once you subtract as regular, and you end up with 9 and 31 hundredths. That's very, very simple, right? Yes. Okay, guys, let's see if you can remember everything that we talked about today. Here are our main points. 1. Subtraction is really addition of the opposite. 2. To subtract fractions, all you have to do is get a common denominator, which is a CD. 3. To subtract mixed numbers, convert them to fractions. And then finally, to subtract decimals, just like in adding, just line up the decimal places. Now, I hope you know that I saved my favorite point for now, for the end. And that favorite point for today is the main principle of subtraction. The only things you can ever subtract are the same things, and when you subtract the same things, you get the same things. All right, guys. I know you guys have had a wonderful week thus far, and I expect that you're going to finish strong, okay? So you all go on in there and give it your best today, and I will see you all next week. Take care.